there, this is Sherry Hayes with MomDelights.com, and today we're going to answer some questions about how do you plan when you're doing relaxed homeschooling, among other things. So stay tuned. So some sweet person left me a question, and it was a number of questions that I think are not just questions that she had, but I think a lot of my viewers have the same questions in their minds. And one of them was, and I'll just read what she wrote to me in one of her comments. Do you have any tips for planning for a year or having the right amount of material for state law? 180 days of lessons here. How do you choose what is appropriate at each age? What standard do you go by? And so she's already using like some of the things from math and the books with notebooking idea. By the way, if you hear footsteps, the girls are cleaning the kitchen above me. Okay, anyway, so these are the questions she had. Now, first of all, she's talking about doing a year of planning. Okay, when you're using more of a literature-based, relaxed homeschooling type of idea. Basically, what you do is you choose a stack of books or a list of things you want to cover, and you just work on that for 180 days, and each day you fill in what you do. Now, that's in a state where they don't ask for specifics, right? Also, in another state where they might want you to have an actual plan, you can do the same thing. You can have a stack of books that you would like to get through, and you don't have to get through all of them necessarily. I'm just saying, have a plan in place, the different areas you want to touch, the different books you want to use, put them in the categories that they understand, educationese, in other words. Like we are going to, here's some examples. Okay, so these are two books. They are currently in print, and they're actually pretty good treatments of the subject. This is Voices of Young Heroes, and this is Voices of Ordinary Heroes. Now this is World War II era. So let's say that we decided we're going to study World War II, and we use these books kind of as a springboard. And it just talks about the heroic tales of young people and what they did during the war. My girls really enjoyed it. I mean, these books really have highlighted some really important stories. Anne Frank is in here, but she's just among a number of them. Martin Bormann Jr. Okay, so this could be, you're studying World War II. You're studying, you got some geography in here, you've got all kinds of stuff. So this could cover a lot of different areas, and you put it down mostly, I guess, for what I call world stories, but social studies, I guess they would understand. And so this is for that. And then let's say that, well, you have a young person and you want to teach them life skills. Well, we're going through, this is a nonfiction book, this isn't fiction. We are going currently through this little book of home economics, chapter by chapter. And we're going over the different things. We've gone over budgeting and what types of loans there are, all kinds of stuff. So this is something that could be under like life skills, whatever. This right here is the mystery of the periodic table. This is great for a STEM or a science thing. You're just going through how the periodic table came to be. This is by Benjamin Weicker. He's really a great guy. I really like his books. And this is What's Chemistry All About. This is an Usborne book. It's fairly recent. You could go through this a chapter at a time. Let's say that and let's say also here is, let's see, let me get another history book. Let's say you want to study early American history. Well, here's Stories of American Life and Adventure by Edward Eggleston. These are really fascinating stories, and you could read these, and then this could be a springboard, and you could do a study. But when you're making your plan that you have to submit, you just put this and maybe some other historical fiction underneath that. Now, you can go into language arts and literature by, depending on the age, you could use something like Freckles by Gene Stratton Porter. Let's do that. And you could put this down as something that you did just for literature. And Gene Stratton Porter, you know, she did Girl of the Limberlost. But you could also do this for science, like you could do, this has a lot of nature study in it. So that could be part of that. Little House in the Big Woods. Well, that's literature, and it's also history. There you go. So you could just have like a stack of these books, a list. Let's say that you want to do a unit study like we did on Egypt. So you put Egypt down. We're going to study Egypt and that and cover all the different areas. And so when you take these relaxed plans, you can still submit these and say these are our textbooks and these are our activities, and you can submit that And I'm pretty sure, I think I'm getting from a lot of homeschool channels that this is what they've actually done for years. And depending on the person, I think that they'll accept it as long as you have the different areas that they require. You just do it. You just use these as their textbooks instead of a regular textbook, but you show that you're understanding that you have to cover certain things. Does that make sense? Like you can go through, this is pretty easy. Do a chapter a week and it's chemistry. I mean, doesn't that that kind of covers the whole subject. You don't really have to do a lot of explaining if they can see the contents of the book. Right now, I haven't done this before. I've never lived in a state that did this. My states, by and large, were the 180-day states, okay? But just as an idea, this is something that you could think about. You'll have to look online. Lots of them also do, like you can do whatever you want to, but you have to do the tests. No, that's something else. Now, the other question she asked is, how do you know what's appropriate for each age? Well, I've done this guide, and it's the Homeschool for Cheaper Free Guide. And in this, it's for free download. I'll put the link below. You can download it, print it out. There's no obligation whatsoever, even to leave an email. I don't really care. So what you do is you find out my basic homeschool, like what I believe about homeschooling, the program I kind of set up with my own kids. What's the word I'm looking for? My philosophy of homeschooling. That's it. So my children teach themselves, and I get to learn along with them. That's basically it. I have Charlotte Mason quotes and all kinds of stuff. And then I get into my book lists. Now, this book list, I have publishers and sources. I have kind of a key, what's newer used, out of print, Kindle, public domain, that kind of thing. So I have all these here, and I have them in levels. Like here's level 1, read alouds, and level 2, level 3, and I get to level 3. Here's a whole bunch of level 3. And there's level 3 a lot more. There's lots to look at in here. Then there's level 4. Start that. And level 4 is more like high schoolish. And here's some different authors you can look for. Just doing really good. And so this guide kind of would help you to know like what's appropriate for each age. And I kind of explain that in here. So if you're having trouble and you're struggling, I actually gleaned this list off of a conglomeration of a lot of different ones, such as the Robinson curriculum list, which you can just get the Robinson curriculum, and they go through each book in a numbered format. And you can just do that. If you want to get Robinson curriculum, then you probably don't have to think that much, but I like drawing outside the lines. So anyway, and then I go to Sunlight, the Sunlight curriculum. I've gleaned books from there. I've gleaned books from, let's see, Robinson, Ambleside Online. That's the free Charlotte Mason curriculum online. You can go there and you can glean what kind of books are in their lists. And so that's where I got a lot of the ideas, not everything I liked on there. So I picked and I chose. And my parameters for picking these is that they will enthuse my children for the Lord. And so they might not always be 100% Christian, but they will point to the Lord or point to the need for the Lord, or they will, something to that effect. So that's kind of why I chose these books like I did. And I've been teaching from these books for many, many years. So I kind of know what is the cream of the crop, at least for our family. Everybody's different, but this is kind of what we think. So anyway, you can take that and I put it in your hands, whatever you want to do with it. But anyway, that's something that will help. Now, another thing she wanted to know then is the standards. I think I pretty much explained that. Now I have here, if you'll notice, I have both fiction and nonfiction. So while you're making your list and while you're going, you don't have to just read through a book of fiction and then, enjoy discussions and activities and writing assignments and notebooking off of that. You can also read it together or assign it personally, a historical fiction book, and you can also take a nonfiction book and you can either do it together or you can assign this to one of your children to read it and notebook it. And I have another really good book for that, and that's This World of Science. This is done by Master Books a while back, but anyway, so this covers like all kinds of topics. This is one of those. This is atoms just in general, what they are, table of elements again. Here we are melting and boiling, all these different kinds of things. This is kind of like the Usborne science, but this has more of, it's not, the first part of it is overtly Christian. The rest just isn't too evolutionary like. So it's just a general science book. But if you want to just cover general science topics with your kids and make sure they know the basics, this would be a good way to do it, just like a chapter. You don't even have to go sequentially. Let's say your kids are just interested in something like electricity, and so you could just go to the electricity part and just read all you can. Go on the internet, gather some more things, notebook about it, like these different circuits, you can talk about them, and just, enjoy that. Here's communications, just whatever you're interested in. Here's Earth and life, and so it covers that stuff. So you could just enjoy that together. You could do this like once a week. You could just take there's one lady that's been commenting, and she says like she has a whole month where all they do is like science. You can do that too. It just depends on what you and your kids like to do. Here is an older book. I think this is still currently in print. This is a time traveler book by Usborne. And this is kind of fun because this has to be castles, and this is Vikings. This is very, very British history here, but it's still fun, And anyway, Bjorn sails to Iceland, and then I think they go into Roman times. Yeah, they got Romans and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, it's a lot of fun, and you can go through that little by little with your kids. I've done that before. It's a lot of fun. You learn a lot of history, and this is a kind of history that kind of sticks because you're doing it together, and it's in a fun way, and you're learning about the things that you're curious about. Curiosity is wonderful for homeschooling. Another resource I want to share with you, again, some are new, some know all about this already. So if you're new here, forgive me, but I have this stack here. This stack of books was printed off of Heritage History, okay? And these books are printouts that I've done of the different offerings, and they have it in PDF form where there's a 2-page spread done for you, so that it prints on an 8.5 by 11, and you bind it on this side. So I made this cover myself. I went over to clipart, I think clipart.com, and I used Canva, and I just made these little things. But anyway, so these stories are just amazing. Heritage, like if you're going to use history and you love all the different books and everything, Heritage History can give you, like Peter of New Amsterdam just explains everything, basically New York City area, right? And it just talks about little stories. It's so fun. This is James Otis. He's a lot of fun to read. This is Stephen of Philadelphia. This is another one of those. This is Calvert of Maryland. This is all early American history. So you can see how neat it is, how they've done this. They've actually digitalized these books and reformatted them, and so that they're easy to read. And my kids have loved these. I even have, let's see, I have Pinocchio now that I got. No, I got this off Google Books. So I did Google Books, but I did the same thing. I liked that format, so I printed it out just like they did with the other one. I forgot how I actually did that now. But anyway, so this is Pinocchio, and it's a pretty good one. And so I bound it just the same way. And this is a fictional book, but this has got a lot to do with character. I did a short one of Robin Hood. Now, where did I get this? Oh, this is Heritage History. So I did Robin Hood, and this has color illustrations to it. Kind of cool. That's pretty, isn't it? I think these were done by, not Howard Pyle. I'm not sure, but it was a famous illustrator did those. And here is the story of Liberty by Charles Coffin. This is Heritage History. Oh man, this is so great. And it's there. It's got all the illustrations and everything. So anyway, that's one of those things you can use, and I mentioned that in my guide. I mentioned all this stuff in my guide, so you can find that. So I hope that answers a lot of your questions. That you just, basically for me, I live in a state where it's 180-day kind of a thing. And so what we do is I just gather a stack of books and we just work through it. And when the 180 days is up, I guess that's when we're done. We usually start learning and we get so involved and so enwrapped in what we're learning that we do much more than the hours and the days required. I mean, we just can't stop learning. We do it all the time. When we sit around at dinner, we talk about all the things we're learning, and when they're in their rooms, they're gathering more books and reading more than I even could ever assign them. So that's how it works. Once you get really enthused in learning and your family just starts understanding it for the wonderful like candy and cookies that it is, then you have to like say, listen guys, instead of just reading, why don't we go and do something else, you know? So anyway, so I hope that answers your question. Now I'm going to give you something more. So the other day I was watching the Samson movie that's been done by Pureflix. And I thought it was really a pretty good rendition. You know, I usually don't like modern renditions of biblical things because, you know, they can be kind of skewed. Pureflix actually did a pretty good job. I was pretty happy with it. And I was listening to the story. I've read Samson a number of times about Samson. It's in Judges. But the story about when Samson was he was going to be married to the first woman he was going to marry anyway, and he posed a riddle to his wedding party, and the riddle was this. It read, I'm sorry, the stack of books is gonna fall. Out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet. And the Lord prompted me with that, and he started talking to me about a concept that he wanted me to share. And this concept is, out of the eater came something to eat. So if we look at life circumstances, and I want us to be prepared for the possibilities of some surprises this year. I know that we have experienced a lot of surprises in the last few years. I don't think that we should be shocked if there are more ahead of us. But as we're facing these possible catastrophes, possible negative things, I want us to remember that out of the eater can come something sweet. The devil is always trying to destroy. He's always trying to steal from us and kill us and destroy us in every way he can. But out of that comes honey. God can give us honey. You know, the reason why Samuel posed this is because as he was on, let me read it. Okay. So Samson went down to Timnah with his father and mother and came to the vineyards of Timnah. Now, to his surprise, a young lion came roaring against him, and the Spirit of the Lord came mighty upon him, and he tore the lion apart as one would have torn apart a young goat, though he had nothing in his hand. But he did not tell his father or his mother what he had done. Then he went down and talked with a woman, and she pleased Samson well. After some time, when he turned to get her, he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion, and behold, a swarm of bees and honey were in the carcass of the lion. He took some of it in his hands and went along eating. When he came to his father and mother, he gave some to them, and they also ate, but he did not tell them that he had taken the honey out of the carcass of the lion. So out of the carcass of the lion, out of the thing that wants to eat us, God gives us honey. And this is seconded in Psalm 36. Let me go over here real quick. In Psalm 36, I read this. How precious, now this is starting in verse 7 over here, sorry. How precious is your loving kindness, O God. Therefore the children of men put their trust under the shadow of your wings. They are abundantly satisfied with the fullness of your house, and you give them drink from the river of your pleasures. Okay, so the idea is that they are, when we are hidden in the shadow of God's wings. Now, why do we have to, when do the chicks go under the wings of the hen? It's when they are afraid, when they're being threatened. So when we go under God's wings, there is a special place, and the implication here is, especially in the King James, is that when you're under the shadow of God's wing, in the shadow of God's wings, we are abundantly satisfied with the fullness of God's house, and he gives us drink from the river of his pleasures. So I have enjoyed so many times in my life, and I can give testimony of this, and I think you probably could too, of how many times I've been in a horrible situation, and in that horrible situation, God always gives me honey. There's this place, it's a pocket of grace that he gives me in the midst of the hardest times in my life. He's given me honey. Okay, so when I was in basic training in the Army, it was like I was homesick, I was heartsick, I was lonely, my body was being abused, and this was back when Army training was really hard, and I was just really going through a hard time. And in the morning, everybody would be ready to get information and march to chow, and everybody was hungry for breakfast, and I would always volunteer to stay back and buff the floors, and like you wax them, and then when you buff them it shines. So I'd always be wanting to stay behind and wax the floors. And during that time, as I was buffing the floor, I would sing aloud to the Lord and enjoy his presence while everyone else was getting their chow. And so that was one, and because I was willing to delay my, wanting to eat, I actually got to eat at a slower pace. I came there last, so I got to eat at a slower pace. Everybody was in rush, 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 but I was, so it was really a sweet thing what God did for me. So it was a pocket of his grace. So there was a time when I was super, super ill, and it was my intestinal tract was the stuff that I was going through was affecting my emotional self, and so I was really going through a lot of anxiety and everything, and I didn't know what it was, but I just started worshiping and thanking and praising the Lord, and that was the grace that God gave me during that time. I was so full of worship and praise and thanks that was God's grace on me. Even though it was a horrible time, it was a wonderful time, and I actually started really appreciating that in my life. So lots of times when I was going through a hard time, just being with my kids and enjoying the sweetness of their youth and all of their enthusiasm and their little stories and their antics, that was God's grace on me. That was his pocket of grace so I could endure. Homeschooling has been like honey to me lots of times, even if you're getting a tax from without, or you don't have a lot of money, sitting down and being with my little kids and teaching them and learning with them has been like honey in my life. I live in a 1950s home, and so it has a partially unfinished basement in it, and it has unclaimed space. It has like this storage room. So I carved out this room that I'm recording right now. I carved it out in this little house, and it's like my retreat. It's like I set up all my craft stuff and everything. Even so even though this is not our dream house, because of all the different things we've been through the last few years and the housing market and everything where we live, we haven't been able to go ahead and then buy that house that we'd really like. But God has given me a place of grace in this house. And so when my little children were all tiny, every day I was able to carve out time in the afternoon when they took their naps so that I could have quiet time with the Lord and read and rejuvenate. And that's partly how I was able to stay so joyful and full of energy, is because God gave me a pocket of grace. So as you're going through whatever you're going through in your life, maybe you have a health challenge, maybe it's a monetary challenge, maybe your spouse is having struggles, maybe you're getting attacked from your relatives, whatever it may be. Look for God's pocket of grace in your life, a place where you lay down in the green pastures and you enjoy the still waters and he restores your soul. So that's what God has for you today. I hope that blesses you. I hope you've liked this. If you have any other questions that you can think of that you would like to ask me or suggestions, please let me know in the comments, and I will really try to put them into a video or a blog post or something. So have a great day. Please like and subscribe. Bye-bye.